And it's, you know, he's saying the same thing. And the other dangerous thing about this man is he says what Muhammad says is true, what Buddha says is true, and what Jesus says is true. And he's very well versed in all of the great religions. Yeah. But here was this man telling me that this was his master. And he had a very, very powerful testimony. And during the 40-minute drive from my hotel to the yacht club, because we were organizing a sailing dinner, yeah, I just didn't have a choice. But I was also a bit curious about what this man was saying about Sai Baba. And it would be so easy to be swayed if I wasn't confident that I was a disciple whom Jesus loved. Yeah? Because I recall what Christ whispered to me. There will be those saying that I am him or I am he, from the wilderness, everywhere. There will be very, very many false prophets. And it's particularly important for all of us as a church, as the body of the beloved, to be able to discern our Master's voice and recognize, as John did the second time Christ appeared, second coming, yeah, second coming, the second time Christ appeared after his resurrection, who Christ was, that it was Christ speaking to them from the shore, 200 cubits from where the boat was. Who wants that benefit? Amen. Yeah. And again, that benefit is accessible to each and every one of us who has that confidence that Christ loves us, that we are his favorite. Amen? Amen. Now, the last time the last time John refers to himself as the disciple whom Jesus loved was also in that episode on the shore. Yeah. Shortly after, Christ gave Peter the opportunity to undo his 3 times denial of Christ by asking Peter, "Do you love me? Do you love me? Do you love me?" Yeah. In fact, in the original Greek, Christ said, this is funny, you know how macho these disciples were? Because these are hardened laborers, yeah? They're fishermen, they're carpenters, they're stone workers. You had a tax collector, and you had somebody who was very familiar with Jewish law. Yeah? So these were men. Yeah? These were macho men. And the funny thing was, Christ, in the 3 times when he asked Peter, "Do you love me?" He actually said, "Do you agape me?" Unconditionally. Do you love me unconditionally? And then Peter said, "Not sure. Yes, Master, I like you." Or I philia you. Yeah. And then Christ asked again, "Do you agape me?" Yeah. Yes, Master, I philia you. And then the 3rd time, but this was really Christ's opportunity, I feel, to allow Peter to build himself up again after having denied Christ 3 times, yeah, before the cock crowed. And this was more for him, not for Christ, because Christ knows that all of that is forgiven. Yeah. And he can never lose his salvation. So this was more an opportunity for Peter to reaffirm himself 3 times by saying, "Yes, I love you." Yeah. But it's interesting what the original Greek was. "Do you love me unconditionally?" "Yes, I like you." Yeah. But anyway, so after that, Christ also prophesied about how Peter would die shortly before this verse. I think it was verse 18. And then Christ said, "As a young man, you tied your shoes and went anywhere you wanted, but as an old man, you will be bound and be taken against your will to a place where you'd eventually die." So this was where Christ prophesied about how Peter would die. And then the next verse came. This he spoke, the prophecy of how Peter would die, signifying by what death he would glorify God. And when he had spoken this, he said to him, "Follow me." So Jesus said to Peter, okay, this is how you're going to die. Follow me. And Christ started walking. Yeah. And this is already towards the end of the Gospel of John. Yeah. And it is said at the end of the Gospel of John that while Christ was alive, many things he did, and not all the books in the world can contain what he did. After he resurrected, he did many more things. Yeah. And that wasn't written either. Yeah. And so Christ turned to Peter and said, "Follow me." Then Peter, after he heard Christ say, "Follow me," he turned around and he saw Christ walking already. And he saw that the disciple whom Jesus loved was already following. Yeah. Who also had leaned on his breast at the Last Supper and said, you'll recall that during the Last Supper, everybody was asking, Peter was asking, "Jesus, who will betray you?" Yeah. It's a bit curious to me why he should ask now. Yeah. But he probably wanted his master to tell him himself. Because during the Last Supper, his master didn't tell him. He only whispered it to the disciple whom Jesus loved. And he saw that that disciple was there. Yeah. So, "Lord, who is the one who betrays you?" Yeah. So, of course, Jesus didn't answer anymore because it's like, it's obvious already who betrayed him. But somehow, somehow Peter wanted to be on the same footing as John, so he wanted Jesus to tell him. Yeah. He wanted Jesus to confirm the same way that Jesus confirmed it to the disciple whom Jesus loved. Yeah. But Peter, seeing him, said to Jesus, "But Lord, what about this man who was already following? How would he die? Yeah? You prophesied about how I would die. How would this man die?" And then after this, Jesus said, "What's it to you if I bid him to remain until I come again?" And this is where the whole urban legend during that time started, that John would not die, that he would remain until Christ's second coming. Yeah. And you must recall that John, apart from authoring the Gospel of John and 3 epistles, also authored the book of Revelation. So he did see Christ's second coming encoded in the book of Revelation. Yeah. But what about this man? How would he die? And Jesus just refused to say how this man would die. "What's it to you if I bid him to remain until my second coming, until I come again?" And then reading on about the life of John, after the accounts of the Gospel of John and the 3 epistles, and after reading Revelation, you'll also learn a lot about reading the historical context of these great figures. But what I'd like us to be able to discern to the 5th and final time that John was called the disciple whom Jesus loved is this. John didn't need to be told to follow. When Peter turned after Christ told him to follow me, John was already following. You know, it's like little children. If these little children know that they're special in your eyes, they always want to be around you. Because they know that if they want anything, they can always ask and you will give it. They know that they feel safe around you. Yeah? This is why a lot of kids want to compete to be the favorite. You know, and the label favorite is so powerful in that sense. It was the same for John the Beloved, the disciple whom Jesus loved, the disciple who felt that he was the favorite. He was always following. He never left Christ from the Garden of Gethsemane all the way up to the foot of the cross when he was crucified. When Mary Magdalene said that Christ's body was missing, he left last, arrived first. He was also the first to believe that Christ had resurrected. When Christ appeared a second time, he was the only one who recognized who Christ was.